Hi, and welcome to another week of chess opening variations with me, Zach Slagaski, as I go through the most common variations for beginner chess players. So last week we went over the Italian opening and went through specifically the Giacomo Pianissimo variation. This week we're going to go look at the other side of the board with black on what we should do when the white goes with the common e4 pawn opening. I see this a lot, especially with the lower ELA levels, for black to go with this opening, and it's the Scandinavian opening. Very common to see, and it gives black a fighting chance against white, and lets them set the tempo rather than having white set the tempo. So without further ado, let's begin. The common opening that white goes with is king to e4, which black will combat with a pawn to d5. This always got me flustered, and I had many ideas of where to go. I could go here. I could take that back, and I could fortify with the pawn. Looking at the book though, the best thing to do at this point is to just take the pawn. This opens it up for black to go to d5. White will counter with a knight to c3 opening, attacking the queen, not letting the queen get comfortable in the middle, which we just go immediately to a5 as black. This gets it out of immediate danger with the knight and lets us continue developing. White, the next best move for white to do is to go to d4 with the other pawn. This gives white the control of the board, especially the center of the board, and lets them continue to develop. But this danger of the queen over here is still something that white wants to take into account. We'll follow up with a knight to f6 to control the middle right here and right here and right here to stop any further development on the left side of the board for white. White will then counter as well, just making sure that his pawn is double defended by the queen as well with the knight. Black will then move forward with the c6 pawn to protect d5 and b5 along with the knight. Taking this square, this is where the battle is happening. From here, white will go bishop to c4, taking these lanes up, really narrowing it down for the queen on where she can go. We're really trying to limit the lanes. Obviously, she has this whole lane right here, but white is trying her best to keep her kind of trapped. Black's next move is to get the bishop from c8 to f5, opening these lanes as well. It's all about controlling the center of the board right here, and so we are going in and making sure that white can't dictate the tempo of this game. White will then make a smart move with this d2 bishop, making sure that when we do move this knight, it traps the queen even more, because the queen can't escape. We can't just take this because the bishop will take that queen. From there, we will continue with the pawn to e6, completing the Caro-Kann pawn structure and fighting for control of this board. One thing you have to remember is we got to make sure that we move this c8 bishop outside of this pawn structure before we close it up. If you don't do that, development's gonna be really hard for you and your bishop. And so you just got to make sure that we get that bishop out to begin with. Now, the things that we need to take note. The weak pawns on black's side are these e and c6 pawns. Black is going to try to disrupt this pawn structure as much as possible, especially with the e6 pawn. One thing that they'll want to do, especially once this knight starts moving, is getting the g and f file pawns up to attack this pawn, to disrupt it and get it moving. On the other side of the board, the white pawn here on d4 is the area of concern for white, especially now that this bishop to d2 is here. It no longer has this protection from the queen. So the only thing protecting it is this knight. So black is going to want to hit that as hard as possible. Best way of doing it actually is probably moving this pawn up to c5, disrupting that take. You then can develop your bishop here with f5. So if you like that video, please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'm coming out with a new chess opening video every week to help new beginners like myself learn a bunch of new chess openings so that we can make sure that when we're playing the game, we can understand the common pitfalls that other players use when using these openings and better combat them and win you more games. So with that, we'll see you next week.